Heads up, audio adventurers!
Welcome to Human Bubble Podcast, where Plato shares snacks with the weekend and Schopenhauer gets lost in a Spotify playlist. In our freaky studio where cats knocking things over.
We explore the chaos of being human through art, books, music, and philosophy, like a brainy fever dream with good lightnings. Strap in, it's weird, it's wise, and it's probably cheaper than therapy.
Welcome to our shadowed corner of the airwaves. I'm Nessie.
And I'm Darkster. Tonight, A Village After Dark by Kazuo Ishiguro, a place of decay where memory fractures and journey that might never end.
Yeah, Fletcher returns home. But home has changed. Or maybe he has?
Stay with us, the bus is coming.
Yeah, A Village After Dark by Kazuo Ishiguro. In this elusive dusk-hued tale, Kazuo Ishiguro ushers us into the disoriented inner landscape of an aging narrator, a man whose memory falters like a fading reel of film,
Mm-hmm.
yet whose sensitivity to time's distortions has only sharpened. He returns to a village, Darkster? First,
Uh-huh. Yeah, of course I know.
Um, so he returns to a village that once shaped his life, a place he left not so long time ago,
Uh-huh.
or so he believes. But time is treacherous, and so are our recollections. What he finds is no longer a home, but a haunting, cramped always twist
Wow.
into unfamiliar directions.
Mm-hmm.
Untidiness clings to every corner, structures sack in silent surrender to entropy. How does it happen? The village is broken, not with drama, but with quiet, perversive decay, decrepit, forgotten, a place not asleep but dim. And yet, the true transformation lies not in the
Yeah.
bricks of the streets, hmm
Oh.
but but in perception. A whispering, relentless question emerges. Has the village changed, or have I? This is the story's pulse, a universal tremor beneath the skin of individual memory. Ishiguro, with his signature, restrained, laced with avant-garde, this quiet refracts the familiar into the uncanny. Through
Mm-hmm.
shadowed scenes and absent light, A Village After Dark becomes less a story than an atmosphere, a
Wow.
fog of time, aging, and emotional estrangement.
Mm-hmm.
And Darkster
And I
and
see.
my dear listeners, it's not just a return, it's a reckoning, a meditation on how places we once knew can mutate in the mind's eye,
My God.
disfigured by the very experiences yeah, that once shaped us. Well, let's speak of Fletcher, a name now carried like a rumor through the cracked streets of a village sunk in shadow.
Of course.
Once one of them, a boy of hedgerows,
Mm-hmm.
the familiar lanes, the quiet rhythm of repetition, and yet not quite so darkster.
Alright, Nessie, let's step into the essence of this tale. Fletcher. He stands as both protagonist and narrator. Once the luminous figure in his youth, he was admired and both mythic in the eyes of his peers. In those early days, his voice carried weight. People leaned in where he spoke, and he gathered around him a circle of companions, David Mackey's amongst them, of his peers. He paints his younger self as a wanderer, sharp and untamed, roaming across England for weeks believing that travel itself sharpened his wit. And probably Nessie, it gave him an edge and kept him in the spirit and electric. Don't you think that's right?
Yeah, that's what I
But
think as well.
yeah, but the time has not been merciful. The years that worn him down, what once gleamed, now feels blurred, disoriented, unsettled, and through the world has shifted beneath his feet. And yet, Nessie, yet I think the core of Fletcher's former brilliance was simple courage. Like he simply dared to leave the narrow borders of his village and set out into England and all over the world. Just few had that audacity. Not everyone in the village had this guts to go outside because in that era, leaving your village was uncertainty, right? It's not certain that you would come back or not. Unlike now, we have
Yeah,
maps.
exactly.
They didn't. So Fletcher and his band of friends did together. They forged a circle of relentless minds, filling evenings with their cottage with debates and discoveries. They spared over they sparred over poetry, philosophy, politics, windows open, winds stirring in the air, and through the ideas themselves had come alive, rock stars of those shaking the quiet village awake.
The quiet village awake. Wow. And now his mind seems foggy.
Yeah.
What currents are really moving beneath the surface?
Well, perhaps in his mind was fraying Nessie, adrift in a haze where even the familiar dissolved into estrangement. You know, like, um, Nessie, he confessed, he confessed to wandering around, twisting badly lit streets, hemmed in on both sides of the cottages. They were made of stones, those cottages. Just imagine, you spend your youth at a place and now you just can't recognize it for some reason. It's kind of strange, isn't it?
Yeah, and it always happens when we leave some place and after so many years we are back, right?
Yeah, it's like you're correct. It's like he is lost in his own path, wandering through a village that feels like a dream gone wrong.
Of course, because he left. He left.
Yeah.
And yeah, and leaving, make no mistake, was not small act.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Um, yeah, it was an insurrection, a quiet, devastating rebellion.
Wow.
For Fletcher, did what so few dare to do. Well,
Mm-hmm.
he stepped off the map.
Haha,
He
yes.
carved his way beyond the safety of the known, beyond the soft walls of community expectation. And
Mm-hmm.
let's say that his departure was not merely physical, it was existential. It was the very
Yeah.
act of yeah, very act of believing in something what is very important in our life. Possibility.
Yeah, that's
Possibility where is
correct.
somewhere the chance. Yeah,
Possibility,
somewhere is
correct.
exactly. Somewhere is chance for that something will happen, right? Your life can change
Mm-hmm.
somehow. You're not stuck
Yeah.
in a village. Well, so this possibility, this in the unformed future, in dreams not yet spoken aloud. That's beautiful what Fletcher did, actually. So that's why when he returns, it's not in shame or obscurity, but as a figure of myth, a guru, an idol, a living echo of courage. We see it in the young woman, a symbol of the new, clad in ragged jeans and a torn jumper, a
Mm-hmm.
costume of reverence in rebellion. Well, she speaks to him with the "oh, we reserved for those who dared wear other states." Well, so
Wow.
Fletcher, like Maggis, is no longer simply a man. He's a model of transformation. And Darkster, of
Mm-hmm. Yes, I see.
motion. Wow, I love this word, motion, because when you hear it, motion, it's something what is alive, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
something
of
what is
choosing
alive.
the exactly of choosing the unbeaten track over the well-trodden route. Because yes, it is brave to leave the village. Yes, it is
Mm.
radical to unroot oneself from comfort. And yes,
Mm.
it is sacred to chase dreams that cannot yet be seen. Well, this is the heartbeat of the story. This is where the universal pulses beneath the particular. Hmm. Well, do we belong
Mm-hmm.
to places? Or are
Maybe.
we asked? Okay, this is a rhetorical question, I think, for now. For now, because we try to, as always, answer. So, do we belong to places, or are we aristocratic whispers in flights, made for movement, destined to drift, explore, transform? Even if I hear that and I speak aloud, I am so excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
Explore. Can you imagine how it sounds? So when Fletcher enters his old home, he finds ghosts of his former ward, those who stayed, who chose stability over risk. Yeah, they are not lesser, they are simply other, rooted in tradition, in community, in the known, well, the conservations of continuity. But
Mm-hmm.
they do not seek, they do not wander, they do not contest the boundaries of their lives. And those who do, those who travel like that, a bit vague, yeah, are dangerous to the village's quiet order.
Yeah,
They carry the scent of elsewhere, the spark of questions. Fletcher is not just a man return.
that's
That's what
true.
I think.
Same with
Yeah.
me as well.
So for me, he is a symbol of the eternal traveler, of the dreamer who once dared to leave the cradle of certainty, and for that he is both remembered and resented.
Yes,
Let me drink
Nesri.
my coffee.
Yeah, of course, go on, take a sip of it. You might need it. We have a long way to go, and we just started though, right? So, coming back to Fletcher, Nessie. Fletcher emerges like as a paradox. An old young man listen to me, an old young man who once abandoned the heart of wanderers, the labyrinth of England. Yet he returns like, his mind is no longer a map, but a mist of atlas of half erased roads and ghostly destinations. Now see, he's no longer merely a man, like he is a fragile carcass of memory, old and feeble, a rack of bones called a foul-smelling bundle of rack of flesh by someone who once loved him. It's heartbreaking, isn't it? It's quite cruelty. His exhaustion isn't just physical, it's weariness of the quiet spirit caught between dream and fragments of past. Still, some instincts keep him moving as though redemption lies ahead. Though he can, scarcely recall what wrong he hoped to set right. Perhaps this is what makes him achingly human. The persistence to seek meaning even in the fog of forgotten right. What do you think, Nessie?
Yeah, what I think, even in the fog of forgetting, and I like this line which you said, this sentence, like a spirit cut between dreams and fragments of the past. Wow. And it seems, he's like, how to say that? He's like, he's stuck chasing an alter ego of himself that doesn't exist anymore.
Okay. Exactly. And listeners, what do you think? Ever known someone who was a hero to you once, but then you saw them differently years later? Fletcher's story hits hard because it's so real. His rise, his fall, that foggy struggle to hold on to who he was before.
Who he was. So, people meet by Fletcher, but then, why these people? Why these people? Why is it these particular figures who wait for Fletcher in the house of his past, like actors cast in a play he no longer remembers signing up for? They are not all friends, Not really. They feel off, distorted, as if shaped by someone else's
Hmm.
recollection.
Of
Hmm.
course.
Yeah, and perhaps that's precisely the point.
Perhaps.
Because yeah, because the most jarring thing isn't their presence, it's Fletcher's discomfort. The blush of sudden embarrassment crawling under his skin like a rash. He doesn't recognize them, as you notice.
Yeah, I did.
Um, mhm, not in the deep cellular way.
Hmm.
They call him by name. They act as though they shared something essential, yet for him they are strangers dressed in the costume of memory.
All
Ah,
right, Nessie. All right. Let's bring Mr. Pattinson into focus, shall we?
of course.
Well, Mr. Pattinson onto focus the old man who greets Fletcher at the door in the village after dark. He stands there, weathered and unhurried, framed by the creak of the cottage door. It's the modest threshold, yet heavy with implications because Pattinson now inhabits the stone cottage which once belonged to Fletcher himself, you know? Um
Yep.
the
hmm
reversal the reversal is kind of striking. Where Fletcher once presided, Pattinson now quietly endures as the house itself had shifted allegiance. Like the place feels less like a home than a stage. Pattinson presence makes it clear that Fletcher is no longer the master here, but visitor to his own past.
Oh, well, wild, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It's something so much mysterious about it. Fletcher's former home now in the hands of Mr. Patterson. Patterson, I guess. So, okay, there is some kind of hesitation for
Hmm.
me in interpretation of this story. So, if Mr. Patterson is indeed the old man, we can never be certain. The story shrouds him in a fog, as I don't know, if as if identity itself were dissolving. All we can do is assume that this shadowy figure is the owner of the house, but even that ownership feels unstable, spectral, more rumor than fact. Well, but what's the undercurrent with him, Darkster? Why does his presence matter in this shifting landscape of memory and return? Tell me.
Um, well, Pattinson's cottage feels like less like a dwelling and more like a strange. It's like a stage where Fletcher's reckoning begins. The old man is hunched by the fire, the camped room cluttered with splintered wood and very furniture. It's like, a space heavy with use of memory. There is something stubbornly human about him. He opens the door, not out of warmth, but out of a grudging courtesy, muttering, "Well, you'd better come in." And then the oddly generous
Yeah.
gestures his he offers Fletcher the prime seat by the hearth, like, perhaps even surrendering his own. It's kindness wrapped in a reluctance, a ritual of hospitality laced with suspicion, and if Pattinson, knowingly or not, is hosting not just a man, but the restless ghost of the past, he'd rather keep at a threshold.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so was this restless ghost of his past always this reluctant?
Here is the thing, let's see. Pattinson and the others in the room, they once moved in Fletcher's orbit. Now, when I say orbit, it's like, they were all very just admiring him, just like others, drawn towards his charisma and grandeur of his ideas. Back then, he seemed untouchable, almost like mythic, but now, with him sitting before them is the decline of fragile and diminished. Their reverence falters. You can feel in the room the uneasy pause and the low whispers that circles around his sleep. And then Pattinson breaks the silence of the quiet, almost reluctant confessing. It's Fletcher, all right? God, he's aged. It's the voice of the
Oh my
man.
god.
Yeah, right. It's the
Yeah.
voice of the
He's
man.
aged.
He's aged. It's the voice of the man starting at the fallen moment, seeing not the legend they once embraced, but the fractured remains of what time has undone. On to you, Nessie. Go
Okay,
on.
so mm-hmm. So he clutches his relics of resentment, polished and preserved, as if time itself were conspiring to keep them sharp. How is it?
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't rage like others, nor does he cast his judgments aloud, Nessie. He unease shows itself in the quiet, in the heavy stillness of someone who, signed by Fletcher's past errors, you can hear the weight of it when he murmurs, "They're all so impersonable." After, like, learning the young girl had invited Fletcher in, there's a kind of sorrow there. An old believer who once placed faith in the Fletcher now turned reluctant guardian, seeking only to, like, shield the village from the very man who he once upheld, very high in his eyes.
Yeah, this moment cuts deep because it reveals the most fragile through the wall. Memory does not belong to one person. It fractures, it refracts, it stores the same event in two different minds, and let them rot in silence, grow apart, mutate. Hmm. So, what they remember as closeness, Fletcher recalls as a blur. What they claim was intimacy, he feels as a distance. What they invoke with a warm familiarity, he meets with polite confusion. And isn't that the real tragedy? Not forgetting, but forgetting unavailing. The meeting in the house becomes a stage for this quiet horror. What we may be central characters in someone's story while barely aware we were even present. That we may walk through the village of our past only to find what we were never quite who we thought we were, not in their eyes. It's not nostalgia, it's not reunion, it's rapture, a glitch in the emotional record. And Fletcher, the traveler, the brave one, now finds himself destabilized not by the vastness of the world, but by the intimacy of the forgotten.
And listeners, have you ever met someone you admired long ago, only to feel let down when they show up again? Mr. Pattinson's that's quite a reminder of how time changed trust, like a wound that never
Yeah.
quite heals.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, Darkster. Let's
Yes.
slip back into Ishiguro's A Village After Dark. The floor is yours to unmask the formidable woman in a cottage, the one who steps out of the shadows to
Wow.
confront
Mm-hmm.
Fletcher. So she moves with the gravity of an omen, her presence thick with unfinished stories. Who is she in your eyes? And what currents is she carrying beneath her words?
Hmm. Nessie, this woman is a force of nature. She's in mid-40s. She strides into the dim cottage where the old man and the others are sitting, and the air shifts. Her confidence is undeniable. She declares she sews her own dresses to flatter her figure. Like, she just shows her body to men, tossing out almost daringly, then a lot of men still want
Yeah.
her. This
She wants to
defiance,
piss him off, right?
yeah, piss him off, that's correct. Well, she wants to make a point, like, she's not running after him or she's not waiting for him, and she's not the same woman he once met, who was so gullible of Fletcher's words, right? I,
Yep, of
I
course.
feel I feel there is a defiance in her etched in her voice, like, etched into her slightly lean face, as though time itself has only sharpened her resolve. She claims her place in the village with unshakable poise, while Fletcher, reduced in her cutting words to a foul-smelling bundle of rag, stands as her foil. The resentment she carries isn't hidden, it radiates electric and unrepentant.
Yeah, and she's filled by sorrow and resentment. That's what I think. Her soul is filled by those emotions. So, yeah. And totally, totally she's not shy about throwing shade at Fletcher. Not at all. But there is more to it, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's fueling all that resentment? Lay it on me, Darkster.
She strikes Fletcher with words like sharpened glass, reminding him that in their yesterdays she was luminous, young, and resplendent, utterly captive to his orbit. His voice once was gaspable to her, each utterance etched into her own. It carved into fire. She confesses so that the wild devotion, but twists the knife of staggering the memory into flesh, those those clandestine encounters in a way in a very corner of the cottage where he now lies in his fading ruin. All kinds of beautiful dirty things. She named it, letting the phrase linger with the deliberate cruelty, half taunt, half relic. The air thickens with the echo of bodies, long gone, feral in the desire. Her words not just a remembrance, but an act of dominance, proof of how deeply she once bent to him, and how coldly she can wield that truth now.
Hmm. Yeah, beautiful, dirty things. Mm. Now that's a phrase heavy enough to leave a mark. Yeah. It drips with nostalgia, yet cuts with bitterness, like a memory that refuses to behave. So tell me, Darkster, what's the moment with her that lingers for you? The one that refuses to let go?
Well, the moment that truly seizes the air is when her hand drifts into his head. Her fingers were combing through the tangles of his and matted hairs. She
Yeah,
remarks,
quite intimate, right? It was.
"Yeah,"
Oh, yeah.
she remarks almost with a cruel tenderness that it must be alive with parasites. For an instant, the gesture carries a strange echo of intimacy. Fletcher even feels wrapped in the fragile cocoon of remembered closeness. But then, with sudden force, she strikes him on and the forehead, snapped out of the moment apart. Her voice cuts and it resolves a time in time we talked. I've been waiting for years for this. It's not it's not a place for someone seeking reconciliation nor a tremor of sentimentality. It is a demand, sharp and unavoided. She wants answers and she will have them.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what she said. Like, it's time we talk. I've been waiting years for this. It's a little bit scary. Okay, that slap unforgettable. Less a gesture, more a lightning strike meant to jolt him out of his haze. But what fuels her hand, Darkster? Is it the string of something personal? Or is she striking on behalf of something far larger? Something the whole village breathes? What do you think?
Um, I think it's a fusion of those intimate and collectiveness. She doesn't mince words like you ruined my life, a verdict delivered like a blade. Fletcher reaches for defense, claiming he never pretended to hold all the answers. Like once they had bore like a beauty to act when the stakes were vast. She dismisses it with a flick. Her anguish, her anguish rooted less in abstractions and then the betrayal of being drawn into the orbit. It's seduced, it seduces by its own charisma, its ideals only to
Mm-hmm.
be abandoned.
Yeah.
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 So it's like, and it, um, Yet her fury is more is like it's not merely her own. Ishiguro threads a wider unease. She becomes a kind of oracle for a village. The elders' consciousness varies the Fletcher's return. They fear the spark of his ego rekindled in the eyes of the young, yet as it once was, in her voice resounds not only personal grievance but for the echo of an entire community screamed by the shadow of his movement.
Okay, so yeah, it was not okay her personal grief. It was or resentment. Let's say, like you said, it was the echo of an entire community. Hmm. I love that. I love this point of view.
That's true.
She stands like a yeah. It seems it's my favorite metaphor with this bridge I can use to each situation. So for me, what you said about it, so it's like she stands like a living bridge, right? Suspended between Fletcher's past and the village's present. Yeah. But tell me, Darkster, where's the heartbreak in the span? Why does she linger in your mind like a figure you can't quite walk away from?
Oh, it's devastating. In its intimacy, once she adored Fletcher, placed her faith in the radiance of his vision, and Nessie now, when she looks at him, all she can see is the wreckage he left in his wake. Yet she is no broken relic, let me tell you. She has endured, recollaborated, once flourished in her own defiant way. Fletcher, by constant, remains a restless figure, still pacing in the corridor of its own guilt. You know? It's still fumbling for a way to repair what cannot be mended. Ishiguro's tantalizes us with their silence. What unspeakable betrayal lies between them? Who knows? Because, Nessie, Ishiguro in this story, he has not revealed the past clearly. Have you noticed this thing, Nessie?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry I was so much concerned on my coffee.
Oh, come on. So,
Just kidding.
like, one thing it's one thing I get to know about Ishiguro is like he just leaves something for his readers to assume, to imagine, to just assume like what could have been in the past just for us. So it's like the betrayal lies between them. What act of hubris left her hollowed and scattered and scared? She is not merely an abandoned lover, but a living indictment, a reminder that his grandiose ideal collapsed under their own weight. And when she leans back to her rocking chair, uttering the cool, razor-edged line, she says like, "You have got to explaining to do, Fletcher." It's like she is setting the stage for the whole tense, standoff with the group. Ishiguro is so good at leaving those gaps for us to chew on. Just like I said,
Uh-huh.
assuming things perhaps.
Yeah, and there is in this story is a lot of to chew on, believe me. Um, we are not sure about anything there, about anything. That's why there is a lot of interpretations. Hmm. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly what
That's
she said
true.
about her. Hmm. Exactly. In those gaps that the hunting lies and Darkster,
Yeah,
you've captured her perfectly.
mhm,
I must say that.
thank you.
Yeah, confident, casuistic, and unwilling to let Fletcher skip through without reckoning. Well, now let's turn the lantern toward Roger Button, ladies and gentlemen. What's his true shape in this shadowed tale?
I will, but I wonder, maybe our listeners must be curious. What kind of coffee do you drink, Nessie?
What kind of?
What kind
Once
of
again?
coffee do you, what kind of coffee do
Oh,
you drink, Nessie?
coffee.
Yep.
Okay. It's a grain coffee. Grain coffee with a teaspoon of sugar and milk.
You don't like sugar that much?
I recommend, a little bit sweet, a little bit bitter. So perfect.
Hmm.
As
I
our
see.
story.
I see. So in case anyone's wondering, she likes to have a wheat coffee. Grain coffee, I mean, sorry. Oh, let's go with Roger Button, shall we? So it's like, he emerges like a phantom, dragged in Fletcher's half forgotten boyhood, comforting him in a quiet dark of the village. Their link reaches back to a Canadian schoolyard when Fletcher was a 10-year-old boy and 2 years etched in Roger's memory. Then eclipsed the. And it like it eclipsed like Fletcher's return to England, and Roger had been timid, a shallow trailing after Fletcher's idolizing him. Yet Fletcher in those days turned cruel. He just like somehow when he's walking, he suddenly punches him, he twists his arm, and all under the guise of toughening him up. All what Fletcher
He's
did
like,
in the
okay,
yeah,
yeah, he's like a ghost of the past, right? It's a great maneuver of Ishiguro. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's a quintessential Ishiguro's maneuver, right? A seemingly a minor figure steps forward only to pry once the protagonist sealed past. Roger's presence is less about nostalgia than revelation, proof that Fletcher's cruelty wasn't erased by time, only buried, waiting to reemerge as another reminder of how the past refuses to lose its grip.
Oh, that cruelty wasn't erased by time, not only buried. Wow. It's interesting because I think we all have our ghosts of the
Yeah, we
past.
do.
Let's call them like that. That's fascinating. So, Roger's not just a random villager, he's tied to Fletcher's childhood. What does he look like now, and how has life treated him? Does the story give us any hints about his current situation in the village?
Yes, the portrayal of both vivid and quietly tragic, Roger emerges as a middle-aged figure, bald and weather-worn in his etched in the pox of lines, his posture sagging beneath the slow gravity of years. You know, Nessie, it's like he draped in the dark overcoat. He bears the unmistakable mark of time indifference. Though, in a very twist, he appears the better condition than Fletcher. Hmm, believe me, who by now resembles like his own more disheveled vagabond. Roger has rooted himself in a village for nearly 7 years, and in those years, that span, he has absorbed the rumors that circled around Fletcher, particularly from the younger generation, who, with almost mythic Frebers like speaks with him and figures to admire. When Roger recalls their childhood entanglement, he does so with deliberate understatement. He reminds Fletcher that he was once a skinny boy. Let's see, here's the thing. He was once a skinny boy. At his
Mm-hmm.
side,
Yeah.
a boy subject by his cruelties, though he delivers the memory of what kind of disarming modesty, as though conceding it was too trivial to linger the Fletcher's mind.
Mm-hmm. Oof. Wow. Now that resentment simmers under the surface. Well, but I want something more from you, Darkster. Tell us
What is
more.
it?
Oh, what is it? Yeah.
Tell me.
Are you surprised? Are you
No,
surprised by that?
I'm
No.
not.
No, of course. You must be ready for every question. Tell us more about their interaction. I mean, how does Roger approach Fletcher and what do they talk about? It seems like it's loaded with unresolved tension from their school days.
Well, Roger approaches without ceremony. He extends his hand and smiling, he says like, "So you're here, finally." Memory follows quickly. He recalls school days, his own frailty that turned and came by 14 when he handed into someone who followed. Yeah. He wonders how things might have been had he met Fletcher later. Strong enough to answer back, yet the past is not all accusations, he admits, almost rarely, that the cruelty shaped him, forced resilience as they walk. The talk hovers between reapproach and recognition. Roger finally glances at Fletcher, ragged now, and calls him a filthy old tramp. But he's not totally better. He acknowledges people change and that Fletcher entitled to salvage a little self-respect by influencing the youth.
You know, it's interesting how forgiveness creeps in. Now, from your personal perspective, Darkster, what do you think Roger's real intentions are in this scene? Especially when he leads Fletcher to the bus stop. I'm going to tell about it more later, about the bus stop, and describes this cheerful bus but supposedly coming. Is he helping or is there something more manipulative going on?
Um, like it's strikingly Ishiguro's ambiguous, dreamlike. Roger's intention blurs between closure and revenge. His gentleness and under the moon saying it's time to forgive. It suggests release, yet leading Fletcher to a desert squire, promising a joyful bus that may come or may not. It's not there, but it can come. It's not a possibility, though. Feels like quiet cruelty to me. It's poetic justice. Fletcher once believed Roger did toughening him up, and now Roger leaves him stranded in mist, chasing something which will never arrive, maybe. It captures the story's meditation
Mm-hmm.
on aging and futility. Roger has moved on, while Fletcher kept circling emptiness.
Wow. That personal spin really adds layers. So, do you
Hmm.
see Roger as a victim, a victor, or something in between? And how does he compare to other characters like the mid 40s woman who accuses Fletcher of ruining her life?
I'd place him somewhere between victim and survivor, Nessie? It's like, he tempered in quiet resilience unlike the women in the cottage. Still raw and accusatory, Roger speaks with a cooler detachment. He doesn't rage about ruined lives, you know? Like, he states that facts, like offering something that resembles forgiveness, but never quite lands as mercy, though. And then there is this bus. My God,
Yeah,
it's the it's the main
bus is
it's the
mine.
yeah, it's the main part of the story, the heart of the story, I believe so. Leave Fletcher, leave Roger Maggie's. Like, I feel like this bus is the heart of the story. Like, anyone who reads the story, they will like they want to bite their fingers off. I feel like, because it leaves the reader, like, from the starting, it gives you that, like, curiosity. Slowly you get introduced to characters, and then you feel the curiosity to know what's happening next, right, Nessie? But then this
Exactly.
bus comes, the part of the bus, and boom. What happened? Ishiguro happened. So,
Yeah.
yeah, go on, Nessie, go on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there will be one more question, maybe two more.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, well, what about quick sidebar on David Maggis? Mm, He's mentioned a few times in Ishiguro's story as a part of Fletcher's old crew, and
Mhm.
Darkster gave us the brief lowdown. Who is he and why does he matter?
Mm, right. Nessie, Mackie's once like tied to Fletcher's circle of poets and thinkers, carried an outsized sense of his own importance, something Fletcher was quite too quick to dismiss. Still, the young villagers welcomed him like a hero during his 93 and 94th visit. Though his vagueness from constant travel mirrored Fletcher's own disorientation. Wendy found him interesting, yet Fletcher remained true figure of the fascination, to be honest. In the most, Mackies reflect the fading glow of their movement, proof that even the leaders are no immune to time's erosion.
Okay, so that's what we know about Maggis. So Maggis
That's
was
all, yes.
like Fletcher, so the same group of people a long time ago.
Hmm.
Okay, so what portrait emerges when we piece together what is known on Wendy?
Wendy.
There is not
Well,
much, but yeah.
I know. Wendy. It's like, we have read the story, so we know there's not much. But still, from our perspective, she's alone, disconcerted, Fletcher's shadow in the crowd, the first to recognize him and whisper the young girl towards the cottage. She appeared gentle, almost luminous, arranging the stage and firelights, steaming tea, and the fragrance of warm cookies, an ideal of hospitality. Yet the
Wow,
gathering,
warm cookies.
cookies. It reminds me of someone, though. Yet the gathering she promised seems quite spectral. More dream than substance, the girl herself half oracle, half phantom. Now, why I said her phantom? Like, she escorted Fletcher and Roger Patton only as far on the field's edge. And, Roger and Fletcher were following that girl, but she was running way ahead of them. And eventually, Roger and Fletcher, they lost sight of her in those narrow areas, walking lanes. So
Yeah, it's
it's
something
like,
mysterious as well, something to chew on
yeah,
again.
exactly. So where anticipation dissolves into silence, she embodied their both kindness and enigma at once, aiding and eluding, chasing the myth of Fletcher as if he were no man but legend. The fate remains unseen, suspended like smoke. One begins to wonder, was Wendy's coaches ever real? Or merely a fragment conjured by Fletcher's solitude? A ghostly host in a vanished house? Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what we
Hmm.
can say about Fletcher. So, the idea of traveling. You know, Darkster, you have perfectly dissected every soul in this story. Strip them down to their gestures, their silences, their shadows. And now
Yeah.
let me slip away from the anatomy of people into my
Hmm.
favorite terrain, that enigmatic metaphysical expanse where the air is thick with symbolism, when where every object is a cipher, every
Hmm.
movement an omen. Yeah. No,
Hmm.
here the moon is never just the moon, but and yeah, the bus is never just transport, and the
Hmm.
mist is not weather, but a language spoken slowly in a
Wow.
dialect only the heart can understand. Mhm. Once long ago, to travel was to trespass, to move was to defy. In a world before Copernicus rearranged the stars, and before Columbus scraped at the edge of the unknown, before the maps had borders and the oceans had names. Well, well, movement was danger. It meant leaving not only safety but certainty. To stay, to settle, to remain in a world of one's birthplace, that was not cowardice. It was consent, a kind of quiet contract with one's fate. Well, this is who I am. This is where I will be, no further. But Fletcher, yeah, Fletcher broke this agreement. He didn't just leave, he disrupted the unspoken pact. And that is why, when he returns, the older ones look at him not with joy, but with a chill. He's no longer one of them. He's an anomaly, an unfriendly guest, a cracked mirror of their own unlived lives. Because to return after choosing the outside is a provocation. It reminds them of what they didn't do, of who they could have been, and that's unbearable. And here enters the spectral symbol of Roger Button. You talk about Darkster, Roger Button, a name that clings like a strange antique in a drawer full of dust.
Yeah, I talked
Time
about it, right?
and place. Yeah, time and place. Encounters and their meanings. Roger Button is not just a person, he's a moment, a fragment that went wrong. A curious case of memory turned sour of a meeting and left its bruise. In the geography of Fletcher's return, every face
Hmm.
is not just a person, it is a constellation of the past,
Wow.
refracted through times. There I am too much poetic, I think.
No, that's true. That's I like it. I like your poetic. Yeah.
Yeah, facts are yours, and this, flowery sentences are mine. So yeah, refracted through time's wrapped lens. Some glow softly, others, like Roger, flare and burn. And so we see that the act of traveling, even now, carries its shadows. It reconfigures how we are seen. It rewrites our place in the community. Okay. To move is to change. To change is to challenge. And to challenge is to risk becoming a stranger. even in the house where your name once lived. Am I
My
right,
God.
Darkster?
Absolutely. There's no doubt in it, Nessie. That's the danger, isn't it? When you leave,
Mm-hmm.
you don't just cross the borders. You redraw the map for everyone who stayed. Suddenly, your very existence says it was possible to go, and for some, it's unforgivable.
Yeah, that's what I said at the beginning. Possibility. Possibility. Exciting. Well,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about the
Mm-hmm.
boss.
Yeah.
It's the time for boss, the most mysterious part of the
Most
story, I
mysterious
think.
part, and the reins
So
goes
there
in your
is
hand, Nessie. Let's
yeah.
go.
Yeah, and also there is the role of the moon. So there is a moment, quiet but electric, when Fletcher loses her. I mean, the young woman who was meant to guide him toward the others simply dissolves into the landscape, and
Hmm.
he's left standing in an open field. The cottagers set back like witnesses unwilling to intervene. It is then that Roger Button begins to speak as if it's summoned by the very absence. His words fall with the weight of something ancient. Certain things from the past will come back to you in the end. Well, the end?
Hmm. Hmm.
The end? What the end? And as the question blooms, the moon emerges. Sudden, silver, deliberate. Its cold light transformed the scene into something eerie, otherworldly. But
Hmm.
Fletcher knows this much. In this village, the past is not returned to you as a gift, it is handed back as a wound. Even Roger, the relative newcomer, seems to have learned this village's ritual of cruelty.
Hmm. Wow.
Their reminders are sharp, their hospitality thin. They speak only of misery, of mistakes. Fletcher never
Hmm.
thought of as mistakes, you know, until they named them so. So he didn't consider them as mistakes. Yet hope does not die here. It flickers in the thought of the young, the imagined audience who will welcome him with warmth, not accusation. In his mind, their home is bright and fragrant. The tea hot, the cakes tender and home baked, and then the distance yawns. That place is far away, too far to reach on foot. He must wait for the bus. The bus, the mysterious bus, not merely a vehicle, but a
Yeah.
threshold, a connection from one world to another.
A
The
connection
journey
from
will
one
be
world to
long.
another. Wow.
Yeah, that's what I think. You know me, Darkster. I try to I try to go further than horizon.
You try to go off the charts, really, where
Mm-hmm.
anyone's imagination stops. From there, your imagination begins.
Yeah. So the journey will be long. The bus may be late, but it will come. And what in human life is more certain than that? So the thought arrives, uninvited but inevitable. Could this be the last journey? The final passage? Is the bus not bound for another village but for the vast, uncharted territory beyond life? Well, the signs are there. The signs. So,
Hmm.
the dim lamp above the empty square, the mystical silence, the mist lifting from the fields, and then, in his mind's eye, the bus appears, lit from within, full of cheerful people laughing, singing, passing snacks from hand to hand. It's that thing, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. The idea
it is.
that the
It
past could
is.
be resolved. Yeah, exactly. Like, there is the idea that the past could be resolved in a single journey,
Hmm.
and that the end could be a reunion. That somewhere a bus is waiting, and when it comes, it will carry us home.
Mm. Or maybe the bus was always there, Nessie, waiting for just out of sight. Not a route on any in timetable, but a passage you only see when the moon is high enough and the
Exactly.
past has stopped pretending it can be changed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, my coffee is finished, and
And
so
so is our podcast.
um, and so the village fades back into shadow.
Fletcher waits the bus still somewhere on the road or beyond it.
Well, maybe. In Ishiguro's word, endings are never quite endings.
Just another stop on the way.